Welcome to the Times Lakers show. We're back, baby. I don't know why I never say baby. I'm joined by Bill Oram from the Oregonian. No BT. We have gone much bonier, much pastier this week. Bill, you're the award-winning columnist for the Oregonian, my friend. And you're an expert on this. You're the perfect person to have this week because I think it's a big deal. Wednesday, this week, 2024, I don't know what day of the week, what the date actually is. The Lakers will play the Clippers at Crypto.com Arena, and it will be the final time, playoff pending, that the Lakers are the road team in their home building. And I'm very interested in this. You've covered both teams, Bill. Explain to these people how different it feels to drive to the same address and basically walk into a house that's, to use D'Angelo Russell's words, have been completely redecorated.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me, Dan. Being a guest on a show hosted by you is the easiest job in the world because I don't really have to say anything. To me, I think it was always just really startling to, primarily cover the Lakers at what is now Crypto.com Arena and to, have a very comfortable feel for what that building was like, 41 times a year, and to feel like that was just sort of what was normal. And then twice a year you walked in, and I think that's a great description, that it was totally different. I mean, the energy was different, the lighting was different. What was always striking to me was how different the energy was behind the scenes, because the Clippers have so much in-game entertainment, so much in the way of cannons and various things they're shooting into the crowd, and different dance teams, stunt teams, tumbling teams, a mascot. And it's like all those things are happening, backstage, if you will, while the game is playing out. A Lakers game, I mean, backstage is a great place to go be alone with your thoughts. I mean, there wasn't that same level of energy. There weren't people running around. I remember at Clippers games, there were always people back there, like they're rolling up the t-shirts and putting rubber bands around them, because it just was a completely different vibe. And so, I've gone back to a house that I once previously lived in and driven by and seen a different car in the driveway. I mean, I think that's a great description. You'd always hear stories about players having issues parking because the parking situation is different. It just is a totally different for staff, for Lakers staff. They have certain routines or certain, parking customs that change when they're the visitor.
Yeah, I think you hit it there. Like, there is like routine, right? And like some of the stuff, I think when you tell it to the general public or people that aren't in our industry, they may say like, well, what's the big deal? And they're probably right. Like, some of the stuff is, what's the big deal? But there was one thing that D'Lo said to me that I had never totally considered, and it struck me as fascinating. So, Bill, when we explain the geography of like the locker room setup at Staples Center, Crypto.com Arena, whatever, right? The Lakers have the locker room that is closest to the tunnel that the home team runs out before the game and at halftime. Like, it is like 50 steps away from like locker to floor. That is the same tunnel the Clippers use when they are the home team. And when the two teams play, the home team gets that tunnel. That means if you're the Lakers, and this is, again, not why they've lost a bunch of games to the Clippers recently, but it is something where you leave your locker room and you run past 4 other locker rooms to get to the court. You go by the visiting hockey locker room, you go by the Clipper locker room, you go by the visiting NBA locker room, and then you go by the LA Kings locker room to use the visitor tunnel. And it is just like these little tiny things. I mean, to your point again, like, imagine you're a player, you play 43 times in that building, and 41 of them you sit on, what is it, the north side of the court? I don't even know if it's north or whatever. And then twice you sit on the south.
And I think also when you just consider the flow of foot traffic, the visiting team, when it's a normal Lakers home game, goes around in one direction and the Lakers go the other way. So I imagine it's ripe for more like hallway confrontations, because there is actually cross traffic in the Lakers game. I think it's weird, but I don't think it is all backstage. I mean, that was kind of, for me, going there for work. I mean, you go to a Lakers and Clippers game. I mean, they are different buildings. It is incredible. I mean, it's
crazy.
You could be in Phoenix, you could be in Milwaukee, you could be in Orlando at a Clippers game. You know, a Lakers game is a singular experience for all the reasons that people are well established.
Bill, I was saying one of the interesting things that I think I came across in my reporting too was like when Staples Center opened, they basically looked the same. You know, the theater lighting that we've come to like associate with the Lakers was not there in 1999. If you go back and watch the highlights of, you know, the Shaq and Kobe years, you can see into the 8th and 9th and 10th row, just like if you watch Earl Boykins and Corey Maggette and Darius Miles highlights, like the courts are lit exactly the same. And in 2006, before that season, the Lakers make the decision to go to the theater lighting, which to me is like the real, like the first step in like making these two experiences like really be unique. And then shortly after that, the Doc Rivers gets hired. They cover the banners. That's the thing. The Lakers or the Clippers changed their lighting to like the LED like hockey bright lighting. And then kind of from there, especially as Steve Ballmer has purchased the Clippers, like the energies and just sort of the environment, it is eerie. I am an old person. I feel like Clipper games are way louder.
Being at a Clippers game is like a very weird like glimpse into Steve Ballmer's brain. Like it is, you know, it is, you know, frenetic.
Hardcore. It's hardcore.
Frenetic and hardcore. And like, you know, basically it is, you know, Steve Ballmer's energy and, you know, his various celebration moves expanded over, you know, a 20,000 seat arena. So, you know, it has become very reflective of his personality and what he brings as a courtside owner as well.
So our time together today is limited because I was late, but I do want to ask you, having covered the Lakers, having pinch hit and covered the Clippers for a small chunk of time.
Yeah, why was that, Dan?
Because I left. It's what I do best, Dad. What do you think this new building is going to do for like Lakers Clippers as a rivalry? Because that was a question that in our 10 years covering these teams was it like asked very earnestly, because they were both kind of good at the same time for the first time, and then the Clippers got really good, the Lakers got really bad, and the Clippers beat up on them a lot, and there was a lot of talk about, is it a rivalry, is it not a rivalry? How does the second building change that dynamic, do you think?
I think it literally gives them their own piece of LA. You know, whether that's, you know, their fan base is not centered in Inglewood, you know, necessarily, but
Sure.
it just gives them more independence and autonomy of, you know, their own little corner of the city. You know, they could say, you know, we're this, not that, you know, street lights over spotlights and all the various, you know, catchphrases over the years.
Yeah.
And, you know, but they were, you know, they were subletting, and it gave them a sense, I felt, of impermanence, of extraness, if we
third tenant.
Yeah, I mean,
third tenant.
They just felt expendable, and you know, and so I think, you know, it's going to help with their own identity. It's going to help with their own, you know, their just them being a different team for Los Angeles as opposed to being in the Lakers' shadow. And you know, we'll see how that ends up playing out in terms of on-court results and what that brand and identity ends up looking like. But I think being separate from the Lakers, being separate from, you know, the same part of town, like playing in a completely different part of town, playing in Inglewood, you know, does, you know, which I recognize is literally in the historical shadow of the Lakers, but you know, now can be their
parking lot,
but now can be their, you know, their part of town. And I think that's cool. And I think it's just necessary to just get away from the, you know, oh, when the Lakers aren't playing, that's when we can have our games, literally at breakfast time, like literally at like, oh, we're gonna have our players show up at 9 a.m. for games, you know, 10 times a year, because that's when the Lakers and Kings let us have it.
I think I'm with you. I hope, I really want the rivalry to be good. It's a thing that I want to like really, and I understand that rivalries happen after play. Like that doesn't have to be the case. Like it can just be like, and I do think that having, you know, different parts of town adds to it. I am from Chicago. Bill, you grew up a Mets fan. Like you could still be rivals and not share a building. I do want to just take 2 seconds to say, just like, I am sad to see this end because it is such an oddity and it only existed here. I called someone at the league and asked, like, do you know of any other time this has ever happened where two teams have played in the same building, and they couldn't think of one, at least certainly not on a permanent basis. A weird chapter in NBA real estate ends this week. If you like weird and you like chapters, Bill Oram is one of my favorite writers in the industry. I know he's got something really, really exciting in the pipeline that is not weird. That is a terrific story. I will be sure to share that. William, thank you for joining. It's great to see you. Thanks for dressing up.
You asked me to do this after I'd already gotten dressed for the day, so I just want to be very clear that this is my everyday wear. I missed the memo that I needed to wear a tuxedo, Dan, as did you. So,
I'm very comfortable in what I'm wearing. All right, we're gonna be back next week. We're gonna drag Brad Turner back into the studio next week. You can read me on LATimes.com. You follow me on the X. You can follow me on the IG, and you can read me at the LAT. That's the LATimes.com. Subscribe, buy a newspaper, please. I want to get some new shoes. Thanks, producer Mark Potts. Subscribe, like, comment, and we'll be back next week. Thanks for having us.